strength is more important than technique for BJJ beginners. Hear me out. Stay with me, fam. Here's the thing. For the most part, we're always taught technique over strength. Don't use too much strength. But what people are missing when you start BJJ, if you're not strong, if you're not robust, you're going to crumble. And you could be the most technical person in the world. If you don't have a degree of physical strength, you're getting smashed.
Bro, there was a Harvard study done of the kinds of people, coaches actually, that specifically give that piece of information. Oh. And it was found that they're all weak.
Imagine. Harvard. Thank you, Harvard. We appreciate your use of the C word. As Australians, we love it. No, here's the thing, my friends. It is the biggest challenge when you start jiu-jitsu that you're like, well, what do I need to do? What's the most important thing for me to do? Do as much jiu-jitsu as I can, be as technical as I can. And yes, of course, learning jiu-jitsu, we're here to learn concepts and ways to move our bodies to strangle other humans. But I don't know if you've had this experience, Joe, but I've definitely had this experience where I have been more technical than the person I'm rolling. So in this case, this gentleman's called Big Jace. He is 145, 150 kilos of ripped, jacked, just islander strength. Ooh. Massive unit. He was part of Mark Hunt's fight team when he was preparing to fight Frank Mir back in the day, and he totally KO'd Mir with one of those classic walk-off knockouts. Yeah. Beautiful thing.
Love Mark Hunt's knockouts.
And he trained at AET. I don't know where he trains now, but this was back before Big Jace. He was a purple belt at the time. I was actually a black belt. What could I do to this guy? Gi or no gi? Not very much. Like I could barely move him. He knew enough jiu-jitsu that he could just stop what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Even though I was trying to like trick him and lure him in, and all he had to do was be non-compliant because he was so big and so strong. Maybe I got a sweep out of him. Maybe I got some kind of footlock or something, but it had to be such a surprise because my technical ability was not more than double his.
Wasn't far enough ahead.
No. And so when you're at a beginner level, when you first start jiu-jitsu and you don't know much jiu-jitsu, and you're in front of someone who is physically stronger, they might be the same size as you. They're tougher mentally. They've got a better physical condition. As the rolls go on, you will crumble, they will not. And this is the thing that's not talked about enough, is that you need to be freaking robust. You need to be so determined. Not only do you need a degree of physical strength, but mental strength. And that comes from doing challenging things physically. So when you come to something like jiu-jitsu, you don't just wilt.
Yeah, I guess, could I say maybe the example of Big J sounds like a handful, by the way.
Nightmare.
Like that.
Nightmare.
That's why I don't. But, maybe is a bit misleading to the person that's like, all right, okay, 145 pound Islander, 145 kilo Islander, sorry.
It's like a 300 pounds.
I'm converting to the imperial system, God. Thinking about I'm thinking about the middle-aged mum that showed up to the advanced class that I was teaching Advantage last year.
Sure.
That had a great time and was like, I fucking love this, but had never done anything like, it before, right? Never done any jiu-jitsu. Maybe you went to the gym a few times. But I'm like, just the mechanics of what's going on, even like if the first techniques she was to learn was like, hey, this is a frame. This is how you just try to stop someone like pressing in on you or whatever. I had to teach her the technique for that, but she just needs a level of strength that's going to allow that to work.
Yeah.
Like there is a level of force production to make the techniques work.
Definitely.
And of course, you can teach the techniques to anyone that doesn't know anything, and it will be beneficial.
It'll be helpful.
But it's probably going to be pretty ineffective against someone who also knows such techniques.
Well, this is the thing, right? There's always the discussion, we're going to unpack a degree of mythology within jiu-jitsu, which we all kind of love in a way, right? Which is this idea of the smaller person beating the bigger person.
Foundation on which this game was built.
Yes, sir. And, the Gracies really pushed it as a bit of a mythology. But if the big person also knows jiu-jitsu, well, then the small person's they're kind of fucked.
Like, the problem is you're only ever doing jiu-jitsu with other people that do jiu-jitsu.
Oh, yes, but
you're not fighting on the street.
No,
Unless
but
you're me, of course.
Of course, yeah, the natural in the streets. But what I'm saying here is that for the best part, coaches do their best to try to pair like sizes.
Yeah.
Because we also know that the chance of injury is higher when you put a smaller individual with a much larger individual. Not blaming the bigger individual, or I'm not blaming anyone in any situation here. But if you talk to anyone, like any of the like kind of, under 150 pound type humans, male or female, they will look to work with people their own size just because there is way more variables when you go much bigger than that.
Yeah.
Now, why am I so adamant about strength and it being more important than technique for beginners? Now, we can go to the other end of the spectrum. Obviously, you get a guy like Gordon Ryan, and there's a video of him rolling like the world's strongest man. Like he's rolling
Hafthor.
Martin, Hafthor, and he rolls Martin Slickus. And those guys are undisputably the biggest, strongest humans. And he sweeps them and he gets on top of them. And you're like, yeah, Gordon Ryan is the best.
But he's not overpowering them.
No.
Actually,
No. They're doing their best, but they have no jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
They literally have zero jiu-jitsu.
But you can see they present a dilemma.
It is tough. And Gordon's got to use everything he's got. But at an elite level, of course, whoever has the highest level of technique, the idea of strength and physical capacity is assumed. Like if you're an elite level grappler, you're a black belt and you're trying to be a world champion, yes, you got to be strong. Yes, you got to be flexible. Yes, like that's all given. But when you're a white belt and you get started, it's like, no, be more technical. Like don't overpower people. Getting overpowered is what happens.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens. And it's kind of, it does get pretty raw. There's a lot of memes, like, it's like the Simpsons meme where there's like two, I can't remember. It's like Moe's Tavern and they're like standing around and there's like, I can't remember if it's Homer and who it is rolling around on the ground, but it's like blue belt, white belt, purple belt, and they're all throwing money and it's got two white belts fighting to the death. It's kind of like that. Like it's kind of law of the jungle. When people have a low skill threshold, whoever's more athletic is doing better here. And I want to talk about how this goes into longevity. Because a lot of people we know, like not just personally, but what we understand about jiu-jitsu is people absolutely flame out in their first 2 years. This is the sad thing. We want people to get in. We want them to get their black belts. We want people to stay the course because it's rewarding. But invariably, people get injured. People get, defeated in a lot of ways. Like, because it can be very defeating. Sometimes when you go to jiu-jitsu, you feel like you're not getting better. And typically, the person who brings a degree of confidence and athletic capacity has the ability to smash more. Mm. And we do see it all the time, whether it's judo or wrestling, coming to jiu-jitsu, and you got someone who's technical, and then they just get someone who's just ultra determined, bringing the smash and more physically capable, and they tend to prevail. And this is where I feel it is not understood. I got this from a guy called Tony Butagi, and I don't know where he got it. He's a high-level S&C coach from Australia. Shout out. I did his very advanced course. Sorry, I did his course, which was about advanced strength and conditioning many years ago. And he's a very smart fella. And he said this, and he said, before you can have endurance, you must have strength with which to endure. And he was saying that a lot of the mistakes people make with marathon running, like long distance swimming, anything that requires endurance, they neglect the strength work because they're just trying to build the gas tank. But if you do not have a degree of physical robustness, you do break down over those longer distances and your technique does go down and you can't maintain your technique because you don't have the neural efficiency. And really, what he was advocating for in this course was it doesn't matter what sport you play. If you take that athlete and you make them stronger, they will have a better, longer career. Why do we not look at jiu-jitsu in this way? Why is it that we're like, no, strength, don't worry about that. The gym, just technique. This is where I feel is a massive falling down in our understanding of athletic development. And I believe this is why people are churning out. People are getting injuries because they're not robust enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that, the dilemma for the everyday folk is that they're not an elite athlete, right? They don't see themselves as an athlete.
No.
And coaches don't see their students as athletes. And
No.
and jiu-jitsu operates in this special space that it's like, hey, we found this activity that's going to bring you youthfulness, and it's going to bring you physical confidence and amazing self-defense ability, and that's kind of what it's sold as, right?
Sure.
And that's the whole, just show up and train. Jiu-jitsu saved my life. All of that is like almost like tribute to this idea that like, oh, there's all these other sports and shit and science, but jiu-jitsu is outside of that. It's its own thing on a pedestal. I feel like the concept, like say if you take something like CrossFit, whereby CrossFit said very deliberately, if you train CrossFit, you are a CrossFit athlete.
Right.
And that's what they call people who do CrossFit. Now, like you go to a CrossFit gym, I tell you, there's plenty of non-athletes in there.
It's a mixed bag.
Right? But to their credit, everyone's like, we're athletes. You're an athlete. Like coaches call everyone athletes. And it's like, there is something kind of cool in that it holds people, in theory, holds them to a higher standard.
Sure.
So I would think that, like if we were able to change people's view, coaches' view of those who practice jiu-jitsu, then the idea of, yes, strength is an essential part of this thing would not be so far-fetched.
Yeah. And look, I love or dislike CrossFit, right? However you feel about CrossFit, they have produced weapons. If you speak to someone and you're like, oh, what do you do recreationally? They're like, yeah, I do CrossFit. You're like, oh, fuck, this is going to be a tough role. Like that
They're
person, they're into doing hard shit, whatever you think about their technique or anything else. Let me just throw back to Taekwondo. And I know a lot of people hang shit on Taekwondo, but when we were doing sports Taekwondo and competing, we had certain fitness requirements. Like we had to do a certain amount of push-ups, certain amount of sit-ups, certain amount of squats. Like in order for you to hold your level at black belt, you had to maintain a certain level of fitness. That was the requirement. There's no such requirement in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
There's when you get graded, it's very subjective.
You said that was sport in the sports Taekwondo?
Yeah, I mean, but
was there like a non-sports version?
Yeah, you could grade, but even as part of your grading, you had to do, like, it didn't matter if you're a blue belt or you're a red belt or where you were in the spectrum of belts. At each belt, the fitness requirement got harder.
Even for the non-competitive ones?
Yeah.
Right.
The fitness requirement for the competitive ones was
higher
again. I mean, we were doing beep tests, we were doing all kinds of shit, which I actually felt was not that specific for Taekwondo, but they were like, no, this is an Olympic sport. This is what you must do. And so it was like, got to be really freaking fit here.
When you go to a commercial gym, there is a very small percentage of people there that actually know what they're doing. Most people are just wasting their time. And this is why we created the Bulletproof for BJJ app. It's so that everyday grapplers like yourself could benefit from our multiple years of experience and not waste time when they go to the gym. So if you like the idea of becoming strong and mobile and being better resistant to injuries on the mats, get the Bulletproof for BJJ app and start following a proven plan in the gym. You get a 14-day free trial and we offer a 100% money-back guarantee. To start the free trial, all you got to do is go to the App Store, search Bulletproof for BJJ and get the app. We will see you on the inside.
And here's the thing. I'm not saying everyone has to train like athletes, but hear me out. If you've got somebody who has a month's worth of jiu-jitsu, but they have 5 years of weight training, and then you've got someone who's got a month's worth of jiu-jitsu and never been to the gym, who do you think is going to fare better if they're the same weight? The power to weight ratio goes to the person who's experienced some resistance.
Yeah.
And we really know that. And we also know that in life, even if you don't do jiu-jitsu, you've got better longevity, you've got better health. If you lift weights, your bones are denser, your nervous system's more developed, you're most likely more coordinated. This is not to say that strong people don't get injured. This isn't to say that strong people don't struggle with jiu-jitsu, but I feel like there's a negative connotation which is associated with strength, which is, oh, you're a strong, you must be dumb. Like, you use strength, you don't use technique. You must not be smart at this thing. Not true. I mean, I know some insanely strong people, very technical, very smart, and that is why they are so strong, because they really pay attention to the details. So I really want to make a case that if you are neglecting your strength training, you are holding yourself back. And regardless of what your coach says, if you just take a bit of time outside of that, you're going to kill anybody who's not. I really think this is, it's hard to dispute, even though I'm sure there'll be plenty of people in the comments tell me to go f myself, but I'm all about that. So I think the biggest challenge is, how do you make strength part of your life now that you've started jiu-jitsu? Because for most people, they're like, oh, I just want to do jiu-jitsu, right? Like that seems like, oh, but we do push-ups. Push-ups are like strength training, right? We do rolls and we carry each other and stuff. Like that's
Squats and shit.
Yeah, that's good, right?
Warm-up stuff.
And I think if you've never done any physical conditioning before, yes, it is good. There's many cases of people starting jiu-jitsu, losing a bunch of weight, developing healthier habits. Like, yeah, I think jiu-jitsu is a catalyst for better health and better fitness for many everyday people. But the thing that is being neglected is people getting a practice of cultivating strength, which requires a mixture of not only body weight stuff, like calisthenics is good, but it also has a limitation. You know, like people are like, oh, I do yoga. That keeps me strong. Yeah, there is a strength component depending on your yoga practice, but it's limited. And so when you've got Big Joey jumping guard on you or trying to do a fireman's carry, that's a totally different stimulus, you know?
Yeah, when you see Joey at 7:30 p.m. at the kebab shop after a big afternoon out on the beers, man,
you better know he's
your
jumping
knees
guard.
better be ready for that guard pull.
You better have some strength eccentrically.
Hold my kebab.
I can see it now. Beer in one hand, kebab in the other. All right, Joe, give it to me, mate.
Sun's just setting. We'll try to go home late.
Hang on quickly. I'm just going to axe this guy. The reason why I say this, I want to give it an example of one person, very intelligent guy, Greg. Very smart.
Greg Glassman, the creator of CrossFit.
Oh, no, actually. Funnily enough, this guy's in much better condition. Greg Glassman, legendarily not the fittest guy ever. But anyway, not to worry. Shout out. You built CrossFit and created a business that has made more injuries than any other business.
I don't know if a jiu-jitsu guy can accuse a CrossFit creator of that. I don't think that's fair.
There's a parody there. There's a similar mentality. The poor hearted mentality is there, right? So Greg, very technical guy, really smart guy, came to jiu-jitsu with a very keen intent to learn and was also a bit of a 10th Planet fan. He was just training at the gym I was teaching at, and he was always asking me questions relevant to, how about rubber guard? How about this? How about that? You know, he's really intent. And so he was a really bright student of sorts. I think he's probably mid to late 20s. Then we've got like a 15-year-old kid called Levi, meat axe, kind of farm boy, blonde, just stocky, kind of played football, kind of didn't, like just rode BMXs, didn't give a shit, just getting it, right?
Loved an energy drink.
Oh, this kid, he would drink or consume anything you put in front of him. But you couldn't, Levi. Like monster, just a behemoth. And we had to kind of, this sounds unfair, right? His energy was so high, like just 15-year-old boy energy, and just super resilient, very strong kid. Didn't have he was in the gym with his mates around, but he was just active. He's active. He didn't live on a farm. He just lived out in the far out suburbs. We had to beat the shit out of Levi just to kind of temper his energy. Like, you really had to roll him hard. He had only one gear, which was 100%, because he thought that's how you do anything in life. Greg, on the other hand, was not about that. Greg's like, hang on, you got to let me, no, hang on, wait. Like, because Greg was intent on being technical because he's a technically minded guy and it was very important for him. Now, Levi was maybe a little bit heavier than Greg, even though they're similar size. Greg's kind of taller, a bit longer. Every time, Levi would absolutely obliterate Greg. Every time. Why? Because Greg was so focused on getting it right or getting things perfect. And Levi's like, I'm just trying to smash. Like, is this about domination? Okay, I'll dominate. Like, what do I pin? Do I get his back? Do I smash? Or what do I do, you know? He was just so willing and so robust. Even if we higher belts would beat him down for a couple of rounds, he just pop back up, you know? Kind of like a kitten. You know when you see the like cat just whap the kitten and the kitten just kind of comes back. There is and now there's a 10-year age gap here, right? So there's plenty of that. But what we have is we have the example of someone who's not necessarily very technically minded, very physically capable, and just has an unparalleled determination. Whereas...
Well, I might even argue, because I think that represented me a bit when I was younger.
Sure.
It wasn't even a determination. You've just got boundless energy and you got the physicality to support that. And so you just keep going. You don't even know you're getting, like even when someone's putting a beating on you to be like, slow down, young man.
Yeah.
You don't even recognize you're getting beaten up. You're just like, that was a sick roll. Next one. You want to go, bro?
Got rinsed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
But
so you got that like boundless energy, full physical capacity, one gear.
And there's no thinking involved there.
Yeah. Just
Who's winning the roles? Levi.
The guy that does.
This does. And I believe that this is... Many jiu-jitsu coaches kind of not shame it, but they're like, nah, man, you got to roll lighter. Like, don't smash Greg. Like, take it easier, you know? Like, you got to let him work. It's like, man, that. Like, this is an outcome. Like, you've shaken hands, you bump fists, it's on. And in that moment, you have to do, to the best of your ability, what you can. And really, because Greg was so focused on being more technical and not... If he twisted his wrist or he got a bit stacked or no, stop. But in the heat of the moment, you can't stop. And this is an important lesson for many people out there that at some point in your training, no matter how fit and strong you are, you do get tired. Like, and you see it in wrestling. You see it where both athletes are very evenly matched and they're scrapping. And then at a critical point, someone is more determined than the other person. They're just in the heat of the moment.
Want it more.
They just want it more. Where does strength and force production come from? It comes from here. And you know, I'm not going to get into nature, nurture, personality, or anything. Someone could just be a really mean, hard-willed kind of person. But in that moment where both people are exhausted, it doesn't matter how technical they are or not. The person who really, it's just like, I'm just going to do this thing. They're the person who passes the guard. They're the person who gets the takedown. And really, that comes from doing hard things. Lifting heavy stuff is something that really does build confidence and determination. There is that. If you don't have that in your life, and don't get me wrong, jiu-jitsu is a great thing to have as a determination builder. But if you've got someone who only has jiu-jitsu, and then you've got someone else who has however many, even not that many years, maybe just 12 months of hard lifting, I believe that not even just on a chemical level, they will have more grit and will therefore have more better outcomes more frequently. And this will help them in their jiu-jitsu path. So, I mean, you've probably seen it a number of times, Joe, in terms of just someone being a bit more physically capable, beating someone who's maybe more technical or a higher belt or anything like that.
Yeah, often. I mean, I think I did that a lot to people, right? We would just use my physical, like someone that's a higher belt than me, whatever, and then I just go ham on them, and then, you know, whatever, give them a hard time, or and people do that to me now too.
Yeah,
you know,
tables are turned.
Yeah, and so I'm like, well, justice, fair, but
Karma.
But yeah, I mean, I think anyone that's ever rolled with someone that comes from a rugby background,
yeah,
you know, you got some trial kid coming in,
Football
you can see
player.
it on him. You're like, play a bit of football, yeah, rugby. Okay, or, you know, rugby league, you're like, okay, it's probably going to be hard.
Got the traps.
Or, yeah, and just got that like, I'll just go head first into the battle. Like, hey, just take him down, you know? And they're like, whoa, just like a bull. And you're like, fuck. And you're often overwhelmed with the physicality. And maybe then you switch on and you're like, okay, I'll start playing a little bit smarter here. But the person that just comes in with that grit and that physicality and that strength does have a great advantage.
And look, I think even though a lot of people don't want to acknowledge it, if we throw back to Nicky Rod in 2019,
Yeah.
I think that is a
Yeah.
grand show of a person who took their athleticism and overpowered people with more technical ability.
That's a great example, actually. And now he's obviously layered better and better technique on top of that. But still, his strongs. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because he kind of rolls quite differently now.
Yes.
But yeah, he used that for a long time, right? Where he's like, I'm just going to outwork this and just almost like brutalize them.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to get to my position, and then my technique of body locking and passing is just going to take the back and choke. Like,
But he was cartwheel passing. He was just jumping. Like
it was relentless.
He wasn't technical jiu-jitsu. And that's not to say that Nicky Rod, when he was a purple belt, wasn't technical in his own way. But the people he beat were multiple-time world champion black belts, and he was all over them, right? And so that is performance at the highest level. So when we boil it back down, and you're just getting started in jiu-jitsu, if you doesn't matter what your coach says to you, if you put that time into just twice a week, going to the gym, lifting some weights, you're not even sure what you're doing, but you just gradually getting that a little bit stronger, maybe get some advice. You've got a friend who lifts, or you get a PT.
Maybe jump on the Bulletproof app. Shit.
Ooh, shout out. But doing something to cultivate your strength will benefit your jiu-jitsu in unparalleled ways. And I just want to encourage folks to get out there and do it. There it is, folks. Get strong, and it's going to help you so much. Not only will it help you stay in the game, but you're going to have better outcomes every time you roll. Sure.